49er fans, we have been waiting to see who the 49ers' new defensive coordinator was going to be. And I would assume that the 49ers would have made the decision by now. And we really haven't heard much of anything. It's been a pretty secretive process. We haven't heard any names until now. Matt Mayoko is reporting that 49ers Kyle Shanahan has interviewed with 2 potential candidates and has 1 more coming up this week. So it doesn't sound like we might not know who the DC will be when John Lynch speaks at the podium tomorrow. So at the NFL Scouting Combine. So as we're hearing from Matt Mayoko is that Kyle Shanahan has completed 2 interviews, one with an internal candidate in Sorenson, who is a defensive backs coach. He's been with the San Francisco 49ers for a while now, and has been kind of a leading candidate to be this potential hire. But the second one, I already can see the comments turning up on this one. Kyle Shanahan has completed his interview with former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley to potentially be the next defensive coordinator for your San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to react to that in a second. But according to Matt Mayoko, Kyle Shanahan will also meet with Bullocks, who is a defensive backs coach as well for the 49ers. And so they could go internally, but it does feel like Brandon Staley could have a big-time opportunity to snag this defensive coordinator role. Now, I already know, I can see the comments already. People are going to be losing their minds at the thought of Brandon Staley being their defensive coordinator. However, I will push back on that just a little bit. He's a name that I've talked about from the beginning as well, as being a potential fit for the 49ers. I understand why people don't like him, first of all, because he seemingly had a collapse with the Chargers there at the end when he was the head coach for about 3 years. But if you go back to 2020, he was probably considered as arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league with what he did with the Rams. So didn't necessarily work as a head coach. However, he does have that experience. He knows what that pressure's like. And now he would be able to go back to just being essentially the head coach of the defense. So wouldn't have to worry about those other things. And there might be a natural fit with how Kyle and Staley would work together. And again, he can run multiple fronts. He can run the 49ers, bread and butter 4-3, cover 3 shell scheme that Seattle made popular. And that the 49ers also execute. So there's definitely multiple opportunities where he could find success. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Brandon Staley is the worst hire imaginable. Obviously, I know 49er fans want the Vrabel, Belichick, Pete Carroll, and who doesn't? That would be absolutely phenomenal to snag one of those guys. But if that's just not in the cards, honestly, I don't mind going with a former head coach, regardless of perceived success that he's had and, doesn't have the greatest reputation across the league right now. I totally understand that. But on one hand, he does have the experience, and who knows, maybe he could have learned a ton from his failures with the Chargers and turned it around with the San Francisco 49ers defense. So I'm not super out on it. I've never been. I always thought Staley was a great, personality to have as a coach. Obviously, like I said, didn't work out with the Chargers. But, hey, you never know. People flame out from jobs sometimes, and they get a second opportunity, and that's all they need. And that second opportunity could be what could benefit the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm not all the way down on it just yet. I'm also halfway bracing for it. I do think that Staley could be a top candidate You know, we listened to Papa talk about this on the Rich Eisen show right after Steve Wilks was let go, and he brought up the connection between Brandon Staley and how he might be a good option, and sure enough, here we are. It's exactly why I shared that clip of Greg Papa, because he has such great insight with having connections to the 49ers front office and Kyle Shanahan that he actually knows what he's talking about. So the 49ers, you know, it sounds like it's basically between two internal hires, Bullocks and Sorenson, and an outside hire, which would be the former Chargers head coach, Staley. So, how are you feeling about all of this? I gave you my little spiel on it, so I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm very curious to see what these reactions are going to be to just the news that Brandon Staley has been interviewed. But man, if Brandon Staley is hired, the reactions are going to be top notch. So I want to get your early reactions in the comments. All that good stuff. I'm literally currently right now driving to SFO. So I am about to get on a plane, and I will be heading to Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. So, man, I was expecting the news to drop by now. I really didn't think it was going to take this long. I get it that it really hasn't been that long since Steve Wilks was let go in the grand scheme of things. But I did halfway anticipate that we would have known before the Combine. And again, John Lynch speaks tomorrow at about 2 o'clock local time. So I don't know if we're going to have a DC by then. And as a result of that, a lot of the questions that are going to be heading towards John Lynch are probably going to be about this DC and who that could potentially be. So I'm curious to see, though, out of the 3 options that the San Francisco 49ers have completed interviews on, who you guys actually would want the most out of that. I think from what I've heard, and again, I don't have any access to these coaches. I have no idea what they're actually responsible for inside these buildings or what have you. But just based on what I've heard, Sorenson could definitely be an option. That also kind of aligned with what Greg Papa was talking about. Bullocks could definitely be an option. He's been with the team for about 7 years. So he knows what they're about internally and how to go about, you know, executing the defense. So, man, it's going to be fascinating. Who do you guys think the 49ers should go after? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.